Hey howdy hey midweekers, and welcome back to Grand Prix World for the final two rounds of the 2002 season. We've got a bit of a thriller on our hands. Pedro Diniz and Giancarlo Fisichella are fighting it out for the Drivers' World Championship. 5 points currently between them. What you'll see, let's take a look at the stats for a moment here. You'll see Diniz has only won 3 races and Fisichella has won 7. However, Diniz, being his usual super consistent self, has been able to use his natural talent, shall we call it, to constantly hoover up points, whereas Fisichella's luck has been much more mercurial. Either he brings it home in first, or he fails to finish the race, and as we know from Formula 1, consistency is key in everything. You know, teams that change drivers frequently or change staff frequently very rarely progress, and it's the same with your drivers. If you have a driver who's not always capable of bringing the car home, who's a bit of a Yuji Ide figure, you're not going to get very far. So we entered the final 2 rounds with that 5-point gap. It's going to be, I hope, down to the wire, and I'm trying not to have a favourite, but part of me does, even though I think Fisichella deserves the championship, part of me really does want Diniz to win it. As many have pointed out, he's been a very loyal servant of the team, and it'd be cool for him to get at least one championship under his belt. Anywho, news time. David Coulthard won the last race with Johnny Newhouse taking pole. That was because we had, as they point out here, a bit of a nightmare, both cars failing to reach the finish. Jordan and Benetton both got both cars in the top 6, as did McLaren, I thought, but apparently not. Stewart and Texaco have got into partnership for next season, so that's Stewart extending their partnership with both Texaco and Mechachrome. Kind of a static deal for them then. Williams and Total have gone into partnership. That's interesting as well, because that's the first time since the very first season, I believe, that Williams will not be paying for their race fuel. And they've been on a customer ELF deal for every season after the opener, so progress for them. Fisichella got the fastest lap again. He's had the fastest lap almost every round, if not every round this season. And, you know, for the last 2-3 years we've actually been setting the fastest lap fairly consistently on a race-by-race basis. What else is going on? We have signed MasterCard and Fiat, we sure have. And yeah, nothing else really going on. The team is still profitable, which is exactly what we wanted. We've got some damage on the cars because of our failure to finish last time out, although our production capability means we don't really have to worry about it. Any new race fuel? No, of course not. God damn it. Let's take a look what's going on with the sponsor, see if anything has come out of anything. Okay, so we've finally got a guarantee from Mercedes-Benz. That means we are definitely going to get all 11.4 million plus all the bonuses that we've agreed. It's only a 1-season deal, which kind of sucks, but at least we're getting what we deserve. I'm going to take everybody off that deal now. There's absolutely no reason to keep anybody there. I'm also going to pause the video so I can cough. Ooh, that was a bit cheeky. We've also got a guarantee from Mobil 1. That was much more important because that's a 2-season deal. So for the next 2 seasons we are guaranteed to get that full €3 million bucks, and they're not going to screw us. We're going to use these last 2 rounds to attempt something that we've never had the capacity to attempt before. Always exciting when that happens. We're going to leave 15% on the PIAA deal because, you know, we want the extra cash monies. I'm going to drop this down to 10%, bump this to 20. I'm going to see who else we can hoover up. We've already got a bonus from MasterCard, that's pretty sweet. Okay, so we have 35% staff available, and we're going to put them here on, I'm going to put 25% on negotiating a merchandise deal for team team wear, so t-shirts and hats and so on, and 10% onto forming a fan club. You'll see there's actually very, very high demand for Arrow's cars. So we could become a car manufacturer, but there's 6 bars to fill, and we won't fill it before the end of the season. And you only earn money for the season that you negotiate for. So basically, if we sign, let's say, the clothing deal after this round, it's very unlikely, but let's say it happens, we would get a payment for the subsequent round, and that would be it. This doesn't extend into the next season. Basically, you normally only negotiate for these once you've got everything else covered, and if we found ourselves in a position where we had, say, multi-year deals with almost everybody, then this is a way to further boost our income. And I'm going to do it anyway, just to show you what kind of money you can expect to get for it, and how quickly or slowly those deals can happen. Right, so we're now looking at around 48.1 million for next season. That's pretty good, actually. It's certainly better than I was expecting, and that means we've definitely got capacity to upgrade our factory next season. Looking at the car, I think we've got a pretty sexy sponsor package. The downside is these 3 contracts, Red Bull, Mercedes-Benz and Goodyear, are all up for renewal next season, I believe. And the only sponsor we will retain next season is PIAA. So we have a lot of work to do next season. The aim for next season is then going to be trying to find multi-year deals rather than chasing the big bucks, because if we get more money from a bigger team sponsor, which hopefully we land Playlife, then it's no longer that relevant to us if a works team engine supply is bringing in 11 million or 10 million. I mean, it'd be nice to have that extra million, but again, as I've said often through this playthrough, it's all about opportunity cost. And the question is it worth losing that 1 million to have a 2 or 3 season deal? And more often than not, the answer is yes. The only time the answer is no is if that 1 million is the difference between your team surviving or not. We're very fortunate that we're no longer in such a position where historically we have been. Not necessarily a fight for survival, I suppose, but more that 1 million would pay for 2 rounds of testing, or it would pay for an upgrade to the factory that we needed. Now, you know, that is not something that's a deal breaker for us, and I really want to push towards having the team as stable as possible through 2004 and 5. So the aim is multi-year deals across the board, certainly for the suppliers and if not the sponsors. We have maximum bonus-age. That is also a word now, I've just decided. So things are shaping up very, very well. The other thing that I want to begin looking at shortly is making investments. Now at the moment I could hand over 7.6 million and put it away for 16, 32 or 48 races respectively. And you see there's an unrealistic increase in interest for the longer you put that money away. Now, as we've discussed, I think in episode 1 or episode 2 of this playthrough, once the money is invested, you can't touch it. So if the 48 rounds are not up and your team runs out of money, even though you've got 7 million in the bank, there's nothing you can do and the game ends. So it's very, very, very important to be very confident with your finances before you go and make any kind of investment. Okay, that's the financial advice out of the way. Let's run some testing and close out the season in style. We have a suspension reliability upgrade. Interesting that again we had failures on our cars on the 2 elements that had 5 out of 5 reliability. I'm going to go for a brake reliability upgrade. And then for the last round I want a suspension performance upgrade, and hopefully that carries over as best as possible for next season. Let's just put upgrade that technology. Okay, testing time. So, that's the wrong screen. We'll run 150 miles again. I think that was plenty. Nice. We got everything that we needed. Probably a little bit of overkill, but I don't think the extra wear we're putting on is really going to impact us too greatly. Now, I did get another question, actually, and I've got enough questions queued up now that I'm thinking of making a separate episode to answer them, but I'm just going to touch on it very, very briefly while I'm building spare parts and doing admin jobs that you are all very familiar with by now. Someone asked me are there certain young drivers or unsigned drivers that have more potential than others? The answer, to the best of my knowledge, is no. There's an element of randomness between playthroughs, which is why you see such different performance between Mika Salo, for example, in this playthrough and in my Minardi playthrough. It's the same with the young drivers. I always said that I wouldn't spoil the game for people who wanted to play it themselves, but I will give you one tip, and that is generally Season 2, sometimes Season 3, one of those drivers will land a huge sponsorship package. In this game it was Dario Loretti, who can bring in about 13.4 million to the team. The fact that he's a paid driver does not mean necessarily that he is better or worse than his peers. That sponsorship money is assigned basically randomly, so taking him on is not any more of an impediment, to my knowledge, than taking on any other young driver. But between playthroughs, some drivers will develop better than others, and we still aren't 100% sure if we can have any impact at all on how drivers develop on an individual stat basis. What we do know is if drivers perform well, they will develop well. So you get this kind of... There's a crossover point, I imagine. If you imagine it as a crossover point, I think that's probably the easiest way for us to think about it. So if you're a team like Minardi or Tyrrell, it's better to take experienced pay drivers and boost your budget and put yourself into a position to have a better car, and then begin hiring young drivers if that's what you want to do. Because although you could straight away for Season 2 hire 2 young guns, your car's not in a great position to aid their development, and although they will develop as a byproduct of gaining experience, you're not going to get the optimal return on those early years. Whereas if you're in a position where you're a solid midfield points scoring team, then you're going to be able to develop drivers much more quickly. Counter to that, however, just bear in mind that between playthroughs, as I say, random, some drivers are just bad. They're just plain bad. And in this game, at the moment, Mika Salo's pretty rubbish. Jan Magnussen is outperforming him fairly consistently, which on paper should not be happening. Ricardo Rosset in this game is fairly consistent. It's kind of up in the air, and what you can do is wait for another team to sign a young driver and sort of keep an eye on their performance before making a decision to sign them, but that's not always going to gauge for you fully the potential of that driver, because you don't know the nuance of the car they're driving. You've got to kind of have an understanding of the lay of the land in terms of where your opponents are at, where the team they're driving for is at, and sort of what you tend to do in this game is you look at your own neighbourhood, right? So when we assign people to look at other teams' race performance, we generally target our nearest rivals, because they're the ones who, should they make a breakthrough, that breakthrough is likely to either bring them on par with us or have them surpass us in a technological standing. So there's more to learn from your immediate rivals than there is for teams either massively up the grid or right down at the bottom. And the same goes for judging driver performance. You shouldn't be judging a driver like Celso Moreira based on whether he's winning or not. You should be judging him based on, is he beating the teams that are in his team's neighbourhood, and that kind of requires that you track the progress of both your own team and another team. I tend to favour just picking drivers from obscurity, to be honest. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get unlucky. The thing is that when you sign young drivers, they will take any deal that you put on the table. Well, almost any deal that you put on the table. It's very hard to make them an offer that they'll refuse. So simply what you do is you offer them a 1-season deal, and you give them a season in the car and see how they do. And although you've got to, of course, understand that you're not seeing the best that driver is capable of, and you don't see a complete picture of how they could develop with 3 or 4 years under their belt, what you do see is, particularly if you have 2 young drivers, if one consistently outperforms the other, then you've kind of got a fairly clear reflection there of where those drivers stand in, certainly in relation to each other. Anyway, that's a lot of waffle. I hope that goes some way towards answering the question. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you're not, but in summary, it's variable between playthroughs, so there's no surefire method for picking a driver that you're going to be able to develop into a world beater. It just doesn't play out that way. Okay, moving on. We will check out what's going on over here. Let's try and keep Goodyear somewhat happy. Again, we're still chasing the best deal we can with PIAA. They have been a very solid supporter of the team throughout this playthrough, and ideally I want to continue to nurture that relationship. Right, everybody's happy, I think. Did I repair the cars? No, I did not. Let's knock the damage off. And this will be the first race where hopefully we see the true potential of the D-Spec in race trim, because we've only seen it in quali, and we know that historically our team does not make cars that qualify well. Still no explanation for that really. It's just one of those things. You know, you could have another playthrough with arrows, maybe your own playthrough, where your cars consistently perform better in qualifying and then go backwards in the race. I consider ourselves very, very fortunate that we have a team and a factory that is producing a car that may not qualify to its full potential, but generally, 9 times out of 10 will move forward over the course of a race. That's the best way around to have it, I think, because at the end of the day, qualifying doesn't really mean very much. I tell you what you do tend to see, actually, while we're on the subject of drivers and driver development, you'll see that the people who do out-qualify us tend to be Johnny Newhouse, David Coulthard, and they are the most expensive and most experienced and most talented drivers that are in cars capable of matching our own, or being close to ours in terms of performance. So, if if Luca Badoa's teammate at McLaren this season wasn't Johnny Newhouse but was Tora Takagi, then chances are we would be getting poles pretty consistently. So I guess what you're seeing there to some degree is the benefit of having a very talented driver. But on the race pace, it's the car comes good ultimately, and the main thing for your drivers during the race itself, as I said last time out, is concentration. You want them to hit every one of those 72 or 65 whatever laps as on the beat as they can be, but more importantly outside of the wall. You don't want them in the wall, because in the wall awards 0 points. I have it on good authority. Okay. Right, I had a message, and I'm very sorry, I forget your name, but thank you very much for watching and commenting. It was a few videos back, and they wrote to say that they read an FAQ guide that said what you need to do with your setup points is to put them on the attributes that have the lowest score. I'm not sure I buy into that, because for me, what I tend to see is the car is set up, prior to your input by your race engineers, and they set it up to the characteristics of a particular track. So what we saw at Monza, for example, is the race engineers put the maximum number of points they could into speed. So what's that telling us? That's telling us that is an important attribute for that circuit. And if they'd filled it with only 1 bar to spare, then it's fairly safe to say that it is important to fill that bar, because they were trying to fill the bar but were unable to do so for whatever reason. The car isn't good enough, which reduces the number of setup points they've got to distribute, so on and so forth. The number of points they get is variable, it depends on how suited the car is to the track. It's very hard to explain in a short video, so I will cover it in another video, possibly the next episode, or the one after actually, in a bit more detail if people are interested. But the way I understand it is how, if you look at F1 down the years, sometimes you have a really great car that just performs badly at a particular circuit, and this is kind of a reflection of that. So some races you'll just see that there's no points anywhere, and that's just the way it goes. Also, something to bear in mind is that it's a scale. It is a scale, so if you are expecting rain, then having less points is arguably better, because you're setting up for the wet. Whereas if you're fairly certain of a dry race, then you would add more points to have a dry setup. Now, it's not always the case, because obviously with brakes, you don't want spongy crap brakes that don't work. So in this case, it is a sheer performance metric. More is better. That's just a fact. But you've also got to think about the track you're racing on and think, well, do I really need ultimate braking capability on a certain track when perhaps there's a greater advantage being offered by adding more downforce or so on and so forth? It's my belief that particularly speed and downforce will always offer a benefit. So while you, for example, wouldn't... Maybe Monza is a bad example, because in Monza you obviously don't want too much downforce, because that means drag, and that counteracts your top speed. But on most circuits that are fairly windy and require a balanced setup, you will get benefit from more downforce on the car, which improves handling, and from extracting more speed from the engine. You just will. Monaco perhaps not, because you don't have many or any places where you can extract the full potential of the engine, because the track just precludes that from being a thing. So while I'm open to being questioned, I'd like to say I'm almost 90% certain that following the hints, let's say, from your race engineers is the way to set up your car. If a race engineer, or the organic setup of the car, let's call it, is set up in such a way that we've got no points in wind, because they assume there's going to be a strong wind, or they're fairly sure there'll be a strong wind at this track historically, then why would I spend points boosting that and setting up the car for conditions it may not encounter? I hope that makes sense to everybody, because often I do these videos and I don't script them, obviously. Not that I need to explain that to you, because you can probably tell, and I just babble. But there are, let's break it down into two basic metrics. There's performance metrics, which are the top 4, and these are metrics to which, in most cases, but I won't say all, in most cases, more is better. No one wants to take points off their ability to overtake. That goes against racing. The bottom 6, let's call them conditional metrics, and they are dependent on the circuit, and to my knowledge, the setup you begin with before you deploy your own points that you earn in testing is set up to the best of their ability. any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. I will try and find this FAQ, because maybe it's written by the guy who made the game and I've been wrong all these years, but my performance doesn't seem to suffer for it, so hopefully I'm on the ball there, but who knows. Right, Physico. I'm going to give you that point on cooling, mainly because I feel that's what we're being told to do, but also we have engine problems. Mo power, more problems, as Gangster Rap has taught us. I'll give him... I'll set him up for a flat racing surface. With the Niz, I will not give him an extra point on braking, but instead we'll set his suspension up accordingly. I don't know what effect for certain that's going to have, because if we were to take what I said at my word, we would put points, 1 point in speed, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and then probably use the remainder to fill braking to the maximum. But I've not done that because our rivals are so close to us that I really do want to add corner speed and outright speed to the setup of the car. Actually, I'm going to change this. I'm going to do this the other way round. Let me explain to you why. I'm setting it up the other way round because it just occurred to me that Fisichella is on the soft tyre, and setting him up for the correct track surface is going to theoretically extend his tyre life a little bit. Whereas Deniz is on the hard tyre, so he can be a bit rougher on them. So I'm going to boost his braking capability, because putting that extra strain through the brakes and tyres is not really going to have as great an impact on his overall race performance. I'm still going to set him up for a flat track surface, because I think dust is a very hard thing to set up for, mainly because weather conditions have an effect, and the track will become cleaner as the weekend goes on, and rain will wash things onto the track. It's very complicated. But the car is set up for a reasonably strong wind and for potential rain. It's still a dry setup, I would say, but we're talking about wind and rain, which I don't think is conducive to dust, so I think we're going to be alright. A little bit of an insight into the bizarre and twisted workings of my brain there. Did we order new tyres? No, we didn't. I only recorded this yesterday. It's embarrassing, but... Okay, everything looks good there. We're going to stop looking at Jordan because we're not learning anything. We're going to look at Benetton, because they're the ones over the race distance that tend to be of concern to us. And Sauber's traction control is a mystery unto itself. So we'll look at McLaren's system instead. 21 degrees and light rain with a very strong wind, so the setup is about on the money. Yep, looks about on the money to me. Michael Schumacher, the Rain Master, puts it on pole on a 125.512, but we take second and third in qualifying. Fisichella out qualifying Deniz by 2/10 and change, although Deniz only needed 9 laps to achieve third on the grid, whereas Fisichella used all 12. Irvine sits fourth in his Williams. Alexander Wurz's Jordan sits fifth, and Benetton slipped to 6th and 7th with Coulthard and Trulli respectively. What we're seeing, again, is what we saw in the last wet race, which was that Benetton and McLaren seem to suffer in wet weather conditions, whereas the Jordan and the Williams seem to like it. I don't know where that Ferrari's come from. Let's see if Prost are still down at the bottom. Yes, they are. Marini and Tuero in the Prost and the Tyrrell have both failed to qualify. The final qualifier was Juan Pablo Montoya's Sauber, and the car now manages to get himself off the bottom of the pile there and takes 19th for his Prost. Another mixed grid. The rain has stopped, but the temperature's still a very chilled 16 degrees. The wind has also gone away, which means our setup is maybe no longer quite so sexy. fresh tyres for every stint, and Deniz we will put on a 34-33. And to be honest, I think the Drivers' Championship could very well be decided with the next click that I make. So, all the tension will be removed because we're not going to watch the actual session. But I will try and make a prediction, and then try and be humble about it, and accepting when the game ultimately proves me wrong. I've got a feeling that out on the back of a double DNF, I could see both cars finishing here, because the heat is not having such a great effect on the car, and both cars are set up for maximum cooling, plus the heat tolerance of the engine is as high as it can be. So I don't expect a power unit failure. I can't vouch for the rest of the reliability on the car, but I'm expecting... It's hard to call between Fisichella and Deniz because Deniz saves that extra pit stop. Mathematically, under perfect conditions, Deniz should beat Fisichella. But I'm going to say Fisichella will beat Deniz, and if it's a 1-2, then I could see Deniz taking the championship in the final round. So basically, it's Deniz's championship to lose. He just needs to finish somewhere around the top, and finish the final Grand Prix, and he's probably in with a decent shot. Fisichella's got a 5-point gap to close, which means ideally for him, Deniz doesn't finish because, you know, the most likely points paying positions he's going to be in is either first, second, or third, and any of those positions means Deniz is still very much in play. So who even knows what's going to happen now? Let's find out for ourselves. Best of luck, Pedro. It's a 1-2. Fisichella leads Deniz home. Fisichella finishes the race in a 1:31.57, and Deniz a 1:32.04.023, although he was on the slower tyre. He did finish 12 seconds ahead of Johnny Newhouse, so it was the right tyre for him to be on, I would argue. David Coulthard and Jan Trulli recover in dry conditions, and Toru Takagi has another journeyman drive to take the final points paying position for Jordan. Michael Schumacher drops to 11th and one lap down in dry conditions, so obviously the rain was what worked the magic for him. Looking at the Drivers' Championship, it is now a 2-point gap. Which means if we get another 1-2, the next Grand Prix that follows the same result, then Giancarlo Fisichella will win by a single point. If at the next Grand Prix Pedro Deniz leads Giancarlo Fisichella home, then he wins. Basically, Fisichella has to win the next Grand Prix, would be my guess. Let's just assume that Deniz is going to finish. Then Fisichella has to win the next Grand Prix to have any chance at all of winning, because if Deniz comes home third, I don't know. I've been at work this morning, so I'm too tired to math. But if you guys can maths on my behalf, you'll probably know I'm an idiot. But basically, in my head at least, Fisichella needs to win. Certainly, he has to finish ahead of Deniz by more than one. Actually, he only has to beat Deniz in the next Grand Prix. And as long as it's a points-paying finish, and he earns at least 3 points, so that means he needs to finish at least 4th, I want to say. I forget the old point system. 6 is 1 point. Oh god, I'm just butchering this video. Sorry guys. if Fisichella finished 4th, then he would need Diniz to finish outside the points. It's complicated. Let's just suffice it to say that it's very, very close. Unlike the Constructors' Championship, which we have dominated. We have claimed the top bunk in that particular prison cell. Bit of a shower rate metaphor for you there. Okay, so we have a brake reliability upgrade ready to go, and hopefully a new traction control system. Ah, god damn it. I'm going to try again though. And I am going to upgrade that technology and hope that it carries over somewhat to next season. Now the final round is Japan. I've always liked Japanese Grand Prix, and I miss these days where the season ended at an interesting racetrack. Rather than whichever one had the most money or was in a convenient time zone for a night race. I'm still... there's actual tension that I've not experienced before. Because even though we know we've won the Constructors' Championship, do you know what? I'm just going to build the factory. I'm just going to build the factory. We've got nothing to lose now. And that means it's ready for 2003. We don't have to spread the cost over 2003. See that? I was smart. I brained, guys. Again, the car's very easy on the wear. That pleases me massively. Yeah, there's a tension that I've not experienced before, because I'm genuinely... in my heart, there's a genuine case for both drivers to win this championship. But the emotional side of me really wants Diniz to win it because he's been with the team for so long and he's stuck by us. But the analytical F1 nerd side of me says Fisichella has won 7 rounds, 8 now, so he should be winning this championship. I mean, he's won 50% of the races that have happened so far, more than 50% because 16 hasn't happened yet. So to me, that means he should be the winner from a moral standpoint. But I like that it's this close. Did we get anywhere here? No, we're not going to get any money out of this season. And we finally got the guarantee from PIAA, so that's a guaranteed 2.4 million for 2 seasons. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, nothing left to do but perform the final test of the season. And then, you know what time it is. It'll be time for our pre-season episode, which I always look forward to, and I'm going to do a proper one again this year, because I know the one for 2002 was kind of half-arsed. So we will do a proper in-depth analysis next episode of the lay of the land for next season. We're going to rate the drivers, going to rate the power units and the tyres and fuel suppliers, and see who's partnered with who, and try and make some predictions again. I'm an idiot. I repaired the cars before I went testing. There you go, that's a schoolboy mistake. Never, ever, ever do that, because it just wastes spare parts. And then you're annoyed at yourself. Okay, that's all good. That's all good. Okay, Giancarlo Fisichella won the last race. He's putting Pedro Diniz under enormous pressure, he sure is. Fastest lap again for Giancarlo Fisichella. Williams have signed Visa, and yeah, nothing much really. The engine, tyre and fuel regulations for next season have been confirmed, and we are again the best manager in F1, as if that was any doubt. Although outrageously, Peter Sauber is the worst manager in Formula 1, which I just cannot help but disagree with. Sorry, public at large, but you know nothing. Yeah, nothing else for us to worry about. We have found a traction control system, level 2 on the McLaren. I'm going to complain about it because I don't know any better. Let's see if they've got a better active suspension system than us at Benetton. Okay. We are not going to push any harder. Actually, no, it's the final race of the season. I'm going to have Deniz push a little bit harder. And hopefully have that make up for the inherent speed differential between them. I don't know if it would be better for him to be on the soft compound tyre, or if... because you know, that kind of puts him on an even footing there, and he should be able to get the same one-lap pace. Well, similar one-lap pace. He's not quite as good as Fisichella. But the maths, I think, holds up. Him saving himself that pit stop should make for a more competitive showing from him. Right, setup. Extra braking, extra cooling, speed, downforce, and... I should try and give them the same setup, really. Yeah, I will. I paused for a moment because I was thinking of taking this point and deploying it on cooling to try and make sure both cars finish, but I don't think it's necessary given that we're setting up for wet weather again. Okay. The very best of luck to both our drivers, and whoever you're rooting for, I hope you get what you want out of this final round, 2002 season. 17 degrees and very strong rain. This is good news because we've got a very good wet weather tyre, and that puts both drivers on the same tyre for qualifying. Arguably that plays to Fisichella's advantage, however I believe Deniz is slightly better in the wet, so it should make for a good session. Wow! Wow. The Benetton has suddenly found speed in the rain, out of nowhere. David Coulthard puts it on pole on the 152.297. Michael Schumacher second for Ferrari, 152.303. Eddie Irvine's Williams takes third, 152.378. Gianna Trulli's Benetton fourth, 152.725. Big gap there, 3/10 and change between Irvine and Trulli. Very close on his heels is Fisichella. Wurtz puts his Jordan sixth. And Johnny Newhouse is 7th for McLaren, and Pedro Diniz has qualified a full 6/10 more or less off the back of Fisichella. So I think most people now would say it's in the bag for Fisichella, but Diniz is capable of great consistency and great recovery drives. He also has one less pit stop to make if the weather holds. If it's raining, then we're going to go all out in favour of Diniz, and we're going to try and get him to one stop because he's got high concentration and great wet weather skill, and I think he can make those tyres last. Controversial. So light rain, we're on the intermediate tyre, 19 degrees, strong wind. I'm going to run Fisichella as light as possible, and we're going to have Diniz do a 26 lap opening stint with a secondary 25 lap stint. And he's pitting, yeah, lap 26. I'm genuinely tense. I'm genuinely tense about how this is going to go. Okay, I'm going to press the button now. Best of luck, everybody. Fisichella takes second behind Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. Michael Schumacher on a dominant run there. 134.59 for him, with Fisichella on a 135.31. So we were 32 seconds down the road. So a masterful drive by Schumacher there. That Ferrari is obviously very, very good in the rain. Eddie Irvine puts it third for Williams, a 1:35.39. 10 seconds down the road from Fisichella and 2 seconds or so down the road from Eddie Irvine is Pedro Diniz in 4th. David Coulthard's Benetton 5th, and Alexander Wurz takes the final points paying position at Jordan. I'm not sure who's won the championship. I think it's Fisichella. It is, by a single point. I feel bad for Diniz. I genuinely feel bad for Diniz. But what this shows is that this is a good team. This is a good pairing because they are both pushing each other, and I don't think it's shameful at all that Pedro Diniz has finished 1 point behind his teammate. That is how I hope every championship would be in real life. So there we have it. Giancarlo Fisichella is the 2002 F1 Drivers' World Champion. Pedro Diniz takes 2nd, Johnny Newhouse takes 3rd, David Coulthard 4th, Luca Badoer 5th, Eddie Irvine 6th, Johnny Herbert 7th, Jarno Trulli 8th, and the top 10 is rounded out by Schumacher and Wurz, who are joint 9th position. Michael Schumacher was very lucky to end up there actually, because he's only scored points in 2 races, and they were both super wet weather races, and he wouldn't be in the top 10 were it not for that win he's just picked up. In the Constructors' Championship, we won it by a long, long margin, a very big margin. McLaren finished 2nd, Benetton were a respectable 3rd, but still quite distant. Williams pulled it back to 4th, which is better than any of us expected from them this season. Jordan have gone massively backwards, ending up 5th this season. 6th are Ferrari, 7th Minardi, 8th Stewart, and outside of the Constructors' Championship are Sauber and Tyrrell and Prost. I believe Prost we can safely consider to be the losers at this particular party. Well done everyone, we finally got here. From between 1988 and 2002 we have turned arrows from a almost near as makes no difference back of the grid team into the World Championship winning outfit of the season. And congratulations to Giancarlo Fisichella. He gets some vague attempt at 90s music, and he also takes home the trophy this season. I can't feel too bad. I think he probably deserved it, but I just feel bad for Diniz given that he took it right down to the wire. Anyway, thank you as ever guys so very much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this thrilling end to the season, and I look forward to bringing you the pre-season look for 2003 probably this weekend, I would hope. Stay out of trouble.